Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. I'm Cubby Lambeth from the Podium Finish. With me have been Schneider, Adam Lemerise, Josh Burch, and Joe Samaniego, who is live from Portland International Raceway. Please be sure to comment and ask questions in the chat box below. And before we begin today's show, we want to acknowledge that today is September 11th. 20 years ago, after the horrific 9/11 terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and those who lost their lives in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, nearly 3,000 people had their lives taken away from the evil acts of terror against the United States of America on September 11th, 2001. We understand today is a hard day for many who lost family and friends on this tragic day. 20 years later, people still remember exactly where they were when it happened. We're keeping every single person affected by one of the saddest days in history that changed America forever in our deepest thoughts. 9/11 is a day that our country will never forget. And now, looking at today's agenda, we have Formula One, World Rally Championship, NASCAR, MotoGP, and IMSA all racing. Tomorrow at noon Eastern, we'll have a special Grid Live pre-race for the NTT IndyCar Series Grand Prix of Portland. Started the IndyCar West Coast Swing beginning this weekend in the Beaver State, followed by Laguna Seca and Long Beach ending the season. And we'll kick it off with you, Ben. We have a lot to cover on the ground in Portland, Oregon.
Thank you, Kobe. That's right. A lot to cover at PIR. And as you all can see, Grid Network's own Joe Samaniego is standing on site right now. Yesterday, Joe, you interviewed a handful of IndyCar drivers in your Friday recap. I want to ask you, out of all the questions you asked in yesterday's video, which driver gave you the most intriguing insight and answer?
When it came to talking to all the drivers yesterday, one of the drivers I found was more intriguing answers has to come from Callum Alula. One of the big things with Callum, talking to him, he seemed like he just has a lot of positive feelings when it comes to IndyCar racing. He talked about how he enjoyed Indianapolis. Then when I asked him the question, what is his street course experience? Of course, for a lot of drive fans that are not familiar with him, of course, he's done a lot of racing all across from Macau, Monaco. So definitely was an opportunity to see introduction question for the fans not familiar with him. And what we saw from his answer, he seemed like he was more excited for Long Beach. He hadn't got a chance to see an on-board lap yet, but that genuine excitement I felt was really showing, especially when considering he should be in F1. He wasn't in F1 this year. Circumstances beyond his control, mainly the funding issue, but then he got the reserve spot. Hasn't seen a lap on the racetrack. Now he's here in the United States, enjoying the opportunity. He loved testing the IndyCar and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Coming to Portland, he was very excited to be here. He called this track an old school track because it is an old school track from the 1960s. He's going to go to Laguna Seca, the street course. With all the excitement he has for this, considering he is with a smaller team, I would not be surprised if you could see him finish in the top 10, potentially the top 5. I think a podium will be just a bit out of reach for him, but he was definitely somebody very much excited to be here and one of my favorite drivers to meet yesterday when it came to the Q&A session.
Joe, it's Josh here over in the UK, over during trackside, looking absolutely fantastic as well. I can hear them going around practicing. We're starting, of course, the triple header from IndyCar. The last 3 races, 3 weekends in a row, as you said. We go off to this weekend in Portland, Laguna Seca, wrap up at Long Beach. What's the pressure like there? Because we've got 4 drivers very much in the hunt for the title. Dixon and Palou made contact last time. Pato O'Ward's taken the lead. What's the atmosphere like there? Is it high tension or is everything just remaining calm?
Well, right now, when it comes to the vibe around here, it has been pretty much mellow. What I anticipated for our own race here at Portland International Raceway. With that said, though, yesterday when we were in the tech inspection area, you could sort of sense a little bit of the anticipation, like, this is something big. We're in Portland for essentially the start of the final leg of the NTT IndyCar Championship season. We saw it this morning, the drivers, it's now go time. They got to go out there because they're only going to have this practice. They're going to go to qualifying, and then they're racing tomorrow. So it's a short weekend, and it's a track where you got to be up front. If you're not up front, you could be in trouble with the festival corners. And if you are up front, you got to watch your mirrors in case somebody comes out from nowhere and takes you out in the festival corner, ending your race. Interesting fact, the last 2 times we've been here, Graham Rahal been a victim of the festival corners. Going out where we saw, I believe, Marco and Ray that flipped over, and then last year he got into, I believe it was the driver of the Gamebridge vehicle, name slipping my mind right now, but that ended his race. So you got to be up front, avoid the trouble in the festival corners. The rest of the race, it's only a 1.9 mile track, but it's 200 laps, so it's a long race. Despite the short lap times, your pit crew has to be perfect. A slip on the pits can mean the difference between a top 5 position to a 15th, because it's such a quick track. You got the high speed corners, you got the low speed corners that require a lot of downforce, corners that don't really need a whole lot of downforce because it's going slow enough. It's a really unique track. I think if you all watch Colton Herta's interview, the way he said it, it's such a short track, but with all these corners, it's just a wonderful facility right here in Portland.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, I know you're very busy right now, so we'll let you go and get back to work. Want everybody to stay tuned to Grid Network for throughout the weekend for Joe's updates of the track. And continuing on now, we'll throw it back to Kobe. We have a lot of F1 storylines to discuss from the Temple of Speed at Monza.
Yes, we certainly have a lot to discuss from Monza. And yesterday we saw quite a bit of drama in qualifying for the sprint race that just finished up a little while ago. A rabbit running across the track, someone standing in the middle of pit lane, unsafe releases everywhere, and dangerous group qualifying games. Valtteri Bottas set the fastest lap, winning pole position for today's sprint race. Lewis Hamilton was second, Max Verstappen third. But we saw a massive traffic jam in Q1. Drivers going around the track slowly in a large group, waiting for the perfect gap to nail the perfect lap through the slipstream. Some drivers were obviously very frustrated by those antics. Others worried about the possibility of qualifying at Monza leading to a massive accident. Are there any possible changes Formula One can make here, or do the drivers just have to figure it out on their own?
I've got my notes in front of me now. This is the big book I have when I'm doing the commentary. And this is from Michael Mazzei's actual race director's notes, the lights on it. I've highlighted it in my notebook. Article 27.4 of the sporting regulations and Article 22.1 in that bulletin shows for reasons of safety during each practice session and qualifying session, acts such as weaving across the track or deliberately slowing in fast sectors to hinder another car may be referred to the stewards. If found guilty, a grid penalty or fine. Now, yesterday, it was absolutely ridiculous. They've clearly learned nothing over the past 2 years. Yes, qualifying wasn't going out there for the overall pole position, but it still mattered for the grid positions. And they were so slow coming down towards the Ascari chicane into the exit of the two Lesmos. There were cars going so slow that Verstappen had to dive through, nearly caused an accident. Gasly nearly did it as well, with one of the Ferraris going slow. Martin Brundle, who's commentates on Sky F1, was saying as well that what's it going to take before the stewards step in and start interfering in terms of saying, you can't do that. You do that, you're out, back of the grid. Would it take an aerial accident, which that means it's going to be a car launching over the back of another one? Think Ralf Schumacher 02 with Barrichello in Australia. It has got to be stamped out. And for that, I think they have been a bit lax on this rule that they introduced post-Monza 2019, in that there is a minimum time you have to get round a lap. Reduce it, because right now it's the safety car time. A 2:54.4 is for Monza the maximum time. That's 3 minutes for 1 minute 12 lap. Reduce it. If you're not round in 2 minutes on any track in your outlap, then you are in trouble, because no track takes longer than 2 minutes to get round once you exit the pit lane, not even Spa, and that's 7 kilometers. Increase the speeds, decrease the minimum time, and just make it safer. I am fed up with motorsport not being safe at the moment, because we're seeing so many horrible accidents, and the FIA are slacking a lot this season. Maybe no more triple headers, because it's making their brains go a little bit fuzzy. Adam.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Josh. Regarding the triple headers, I know it's been really hard on everybody drivers, crews, teams, going to 3 straight races in a row. But all I know is when it comes to Monza, it is one of the most historic known Formula One tracks out there. And we actually saw Michael Andretti, who came over from IndyCar to compete at McLaren, have his one and only podium finish in 1993. I believe he finished third. And you know that Ferrari Tifosi will go absolutely crazy this weekend. It's their home race. And for me, the sprint races, it's kind of hit or miss. I enjoy the action at Silverstone, but Monza, it didn't really do anything to me. All I know is, like I said in your watch along, Josh, tomorrow's race in Monza is gonna be good. We have Max Verstappen on the pole, and who's alongside him? Australia's own Daniel Ricciardo, and Lewis Hamilton starts fourth. Oh boy, here we go again.
Yes, here we go again. It's going to be really interesting seeing the start tomorrow at Monza. And we went lights out in the sprint race just 2 hours ago. A really good start from Valtteri Bottas, but an uncharacteristically bad start for Sir Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen, both McLarens got a good jump over Hamilton, with the Mercedes losing 3 spots. On the opening lap, last year's shock Italian Grand Prix winner Pierre Gasly hit the back of Daniel Ricciardo, causing front wing damage. And the AlphaTauri went off course into the tire barriers and retired from the sprint race. Valtteri Bottas, nobody had anything for him. He dominated the sprint, took the win. Max Verstappen came across the line in second. Daniel Ricciardo third, and with Bottas starting at the rear of tomorrow's grid due to an engine change, this promotes Max Verstappen to pole, and Ricciardo will get a front row start, as you just mentioned, Adam. Formula One's Ross Brawn told Motorsport.com that potential changes could be coming to the sprint race format in 2022, potentially making it a standalone race on Saturdays instead of having it decide the grid order for Sunday's Grand Prix. Friday qualifying would determine the starting grid for both sprint and main race, instead of letting the sprint race set the grid for the big one. Under the current sprint format, only the podium finishers will receive additional championship points. In a potential change for next year, Formula One would expand the number of drivers eligible for points, but the final decision, as Ross Brawn told Motorsport.com, that's going to be decided over the winter months. After 2 sprint races now in the books, have your thoughts on this format changed, and are you in favor of those potential tweaks mentioned by Ross Brawn?
I think I'm in favor of anything that isn't what we're doing right now, to be honest. I hate to say that, but we're 2 sprint races in, and no, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't think that this is something that should determine the grid for the main event on Sunday. And first of all, I feel terribly sorry for Valtteri Bottas. Of course, the one week that he would go out and win pole and hold on to the lead in the sprint race is the week that he's going to be starting P20 and dead last on the grid because of the engine changes and grid penalties that are going to come from that. But I feel terrible for Lewis Hamilton. He should be on the front row tomorrow. Instead, he's going to be starting fourth. He's been penalized by a bad start. And because the sprint races are a sprint, by definition, they're so short, there was no time to make that track position up. But Gasly, more than anybody else, one small mistake taking off his front wing, leading to an accident, he should be starting up in the top 5 as well tomorrow. And instead, he's going to be down on the back row of the grid with Valtteri Bottas. And, to me, I got a lot of love and respect for Martin Brundle, obviously. He's one of the greats, and I certainly don't want anybody to see this as a personal attack on him or anything. But it was kind of silly to me when he said, "Well, I'd much rather watch this than FP3." That to me doesn't change the fact that even if you enjoy what we're seeing from the sprint races, I guess that's the whole purpose of them, is to give us something more entertaining than just a third Friday practice session or something like that, whatever it may be. It should not be what determines the championship race's starting grid. One particular idea that I've had, and in fairness, I think I saw it from somebody else on social media as well. I forget if it was Twitter or Instagram or wherever it was. But if you want to have a sprint race, maybe use this as an opportunity for a team's third driver, like a reserve driver, a young development driver or something, give them an opportunity not just to get behind the wheel of a Formula One car, but simulate what a Formula One Grand Prix actually feels like. And then the fans who like the sprint races would still be getting their sprint race, and the World Championship has there are no implications on the World Championship driver standings or the grid for the World Championship Grand Prix. I said on Twitter after the end of a sprint race, I really hope that, with championship points being decided, with entire grids and lineups being decided, I hope that whoever wins the championship, I know we've got a great championship battle right now between Verstappen and Hamilton. Whoever wins it, I hope it's by more than just a few points, not just because of the farce that we saw in Belgium, but also because of points being awarded here in the sprint race, a confusing format. I just don't like it. And I think back to 2016 when elimination style qualifying was introduced. That didn't go very well. It only lasted a few races, and then Formula One saw that and they reverted back to the traditional format for the rest of the season. I'm wondering if there's enough negative backlash or fans don't seem to like what we're seeing with the sprint races right now. I know Ross Brawn is already floating out some potential changes. Could we maybe see the whole idea scrapped from the third race later this season or in 2022 and beyond? Formula One have been known to look at changes that they've made that haven't gone well in the past and reverse their decision. I'm also thinking back now to what happened after the 2008 championship when you have a title battle between Massa and Hamilton. Massa won more races, but Hamilton won the championship. And they were going to institute a medal system, and whoever won the most races would be the champion by default. And that was so universally hated that it was scrapped before it was ever even introduced. So, I think there's a lot of discussion on these sprint races right now among the fans on social media, and not very much of it is good. So it's going to be interesting to see what the FIA and Formula One decide to do in the future.
Come back, Bernie. All is forgiven. I think that's pretty much what everybody's been thinking. Oh, I tell you what, I don't even know. I don't know anymore. If you remember the very first time I appeared on the Grid Network, it was just after Silverstone and that sprint race as well. I said at the time, it had its moments, the sprint race. I didn't like it that much, and I was willing to give it another try here at Monza. I enjoyed the first 10 minutes of the sprint race. I was expecting we were going to have slipstream battles. We were going to have cars really pushing hard. And then what happened? The tyres went off. The cars couldn't overtake each other. The DRS wasn't long enough in heat straights. And it all went down the drain. I've said it before, and I'm definitely going to say it. Yeah. I don't dislike sprint qualifying. I hate sprint qualifying. It just doesn't work. Yes, it gives something on every single day. I really enjoyed qualifying on a Friday. I thought that worked quite well. Maybe we can have a look at seeing if we can have a qualifying one maybe on a Friday of some form or another, because I really liked it. It energized Friday. Saturdays just felt like you've been asleep. I mean, I was considering as well just sitting in my chair and having a nap during the safety car periods today. It doesn't work. I woke up this morning, got into the commentary box, delivered 3 great MotoGP sessions across Moto3, Moto2, and MotoGP. They were fantastic. I got to F1's practice too, and I felt, why are we here? We've just had qualifying. We're having a warm-up for a sprint. And what happened? Sainz put it in the wall, and that nearly affected his sprint race as well. It doesn't work. Going into the race today, yes, it was exciting at the start, but as you said, Ben, Hamilton, who's been fastest practice 1, fastest in practice 2 this morning, started second on the grid in the sprint qualifying, now starts 4th on the grid tomorrow. Bottas has got 3 points. That's great, because he probably won't get any points anyway. But does that mean that if sprint races become permanent, are we going to have cars going flat out with new engines to get new penalties as well? Because you're going to start at the back of the grid. So you're going for points on the Saturday rather than the Sunday. That didn't feel fair to me. Bottas has got a brand new engine, brand new exhaust, brand new turbocharger, and he started on pole position for this sprint race. He won this sprint race and he got 3 points. Now, how's that fair? He's got a penalty. He's broke the rules. He should have started at the back of the grid for the sprint qualifying, or considering that he would start from the back of the grid on Sunday's race anyway, he shouldn't have been allowed to take part in the sprint qualifying. It's disrupting the spirit of things as well. We've now got the situation where Verstappen, he qualified third today. He qualified third in qualifying. He finished second in today's sprint race, but starts on pole tomorrow for the main Grand Prix. How does that work? We've got Bottas now, who took pole twice, but neither of those count on the official record books. Verstappen gets it. We've got Verstappen, who now starts on pole, but only got 2 points. And Ricciardo starts in second. He's only got 1 point, and no points for Lando Norris, who did a great sprint race defending from Hamilton. The system makes no sense. Here's my idea, and I've been thinking about this a lot. You want to have a sprint race, don't call it a sprint race. I commentate on esports a hell of a lot, and we do 18-minute qualifying and then a 50% race. Let's have a qualifying and then let's have a 50% race, 150 kilometers, and let's have it the old points system. You get 10 points for first, 8 for second, and so on down to 8th place. And then we've got an old style point system that the fans loved. We've got a half Grand Prix, which will attract the younger viewers into watching the sport as well. You can even call it Italy 1 and Italy 2. You've just counted towards the World Championship, and then whoever finishes that race, it doesn't matter. You don't get pole. Pole's decided on the Friday. You've done it. The sprint race is on its own, like Ross said, but you change it. You make it part of the weekend. You make it race 1. You make it race 2. Let's add in different tyre compounds. Say you in the sprint race, you can only use medium compound tyres. And then in the main Grand Prix on the Sunday, you have to use all 3, the hard, the medium, and the soft. Let's add in variety. You've got these tyres, you've got these rules, let's use it. You want to spice up the Grand Prix, let's spice up the Grand Prix. Add in these rules, make it work. It just does not work at the moment. We've had 2 of these systems now, and they've been a complete failure as well. And let me tell you something, the people who I've seen applauding it are pundits and influencers on social media. Every fan I've spoken to has hated it. Kobe, I don't know what you make of all this, but it's an absolute nightmare at the moment.
Well, I think nightmare is quite a way to put it. And fans and journalists alike, not really a big fan of the sprint race format that they have in Formula One. I say it works quite well in Formula 2, I believe, but I think Formula 2 should go back to the old layout with 1 sprint race and 1 feature race for next year instead of 2 sprint races and 1 feature. But that's a story for an entirely different day. And while fans and journalists alike, not really a big fan of this format, the drivers aren't really a big fan of it as well, at least Sergio Perez. Looking at a quote right now at motorsport.com, Sergio Perez, when asked what he thought about the Formula One sprint race format, he says there's nothing happening in it, and I don't see the benefit of having the sprint race. I can imagine it's also boring for the fans, and that's really telling for a driver. If it's boring for the driver, and he's saying it's also boring for the fans, then maybe you have a concept that is completely wrong here. And I believe Formula One should definitely go back to the drawing board, because right now it doesn't seem like the sprint race format is something that fans and drivers alike just aren't interested in. Yeah, you guys brought up some really good points, especially with Valtteri Bottas. If he didn't have that engine penalty, he would have been starting on pole position, and he won the pole for the sprint race and won the sprint race, but he has to start at the back of the grid and nothing to really show for it. And Pierre Gasly, after winning last year's Italian Grand Prix, had a really strong qualifying session for the sprint race, crashed out. Now he's going to be starting P19 on the grid for tomorrow's race. And if it wasn't for this sprint race, he would have been in prime position for tomorrow. And there's definitely a lot of things that can go wrong when we have these sprint races, and not sure what's going to happen next year. Are we going to see the sprint race at select rounds, or are we going to see them at every single race? That's a question yet to be answered. And with Valtteri Bottas getting the grid penalty and Max Verstappen slotting up to pole position, Lewis Hamilton is going to start tomorrow's race. And Max is definitely carrying the momentum right now. Lewis is trying to strike back in the championship battle. Entering the Italian Grand Prix, is Max in the best position to get the better of Lewis, or could the McLaren starting up front make it really interesting?
I've been saying all year, I expect that we're going to have a McLaren victory at some point this season. The car looked really fast in preseason testing, and it's continued to be fast all throughout the season. I genuinely think we could see a McLaren win tomorrow. I don't know which one, because Ricciardo's come out of nowhere this weekend, has been delivering great times. FP1, I'm looking at my notes here on the board. Can't see them. He was P9. And FP2, he was admittedly down in P12, so ignore that one. But still, he's been quick all weekend. He was quick in qualifying, obviously, and he took it off at the start as well. So he starts second on the grid tomorrow. Norris starts third. McLaren were great off the line today as well. They even beat Verstappen, and Ricciardo was going for it into turn one. Tomorrow it's roles reversed with on the left-hand side, Max will start, and the inside right down to turn one, Ricciardo will start. So Ricciardo, if he can nail that start, can get into the Rettifilio first. So genuinely do think McLaren might have a chance of a win tomorrow. It's not insane. They nearly won a year ago. Red Bull, they know this is a bogey circuit for them as well, much like Singapore was for Mercedes as well. They're expecting damage limitation. And I think now that Lewis knows what happened, what was wrong with this start, he's going to nail it tomorrow as well. But Lewis has lost his wingman with Bottas starting at the back. So the McLarens are going to be really, really going for it. They see that both Red Bull and Mercedes are vulnerable, and they see an opportunity to take it on. So hopefully my prediction that McLaren will win this year will come right.
Well, throughout the entire turbo hybrid era, we've seen Mercedes-powered cars perform very strong at Monza because it's a track that favors straight-line speed, and Mercedes have obviously had a fantastic power unit throughout the entire turbo hybrid era. So I think that favors McLaren. Obviously, the Red Bull and the Honda in the back of that car is still very, very strong. I've got to say, I was leaning towards picking Hamilton for pick a winner until the sprint race happened, and now with him starting down in P4 behind the McLarens, I'm not so sure. I think Verstappen is definitely in prime position to get a leg up on the championship this weekend. But if anybody's going to play spoiler, I mean, can you imagine the reaction if we saw a Daniel Ricciardo win or Lando Norris picking up his maiden Grand Prix victory? Certainly going to be an exciting race to watch tomorrow. But I do think, to answer the question, Max is in pretty prime position to extend his or take the advantage over Hamilton this weekend.
Oh, it's called. I believe McLaren truly has a shot to win tomorrow. And that, I believe it will be Daniel Ricciardo. Think about it. I know that the Australian Grand Prix isn't happening this year because of COVID, but I think it'd be really cool to see him win tomorrow. It'd give, it'd be like, it would tell Red Bull and Mercedes, we're here, we may be, out of the Constructor Championship, but, we can still take the fight to you guys. And I believe it will be Daniel Ricciardo winning tomorrow. I believe he'll find a way around Verstappen, around Lewis, and win. So I'll just say, I just possibly could have given out my pick a winner, but to all the fans watching, you'll have to wait until the end to see if that truly is my pick a winner at the end of the show.
Oh, Adam, if McLaren wins tomorrow, it's going to be quite a party and a lot of orange flying for the second week in a row, but not because all the Dutch fans, because it's going to be a mega party at McLaren if Daniel Ricciardo or Lando Norris is able to go out there and win the race. And coverage of the Italian Grand Prix at Monza is going to begin here stateside at 9 a.m. Eastern time on ESPN2 with your typical Sky Sports F1 broadcast. Next, here's Ben with a World Rally Championship update from the Acropolis of Greece Rally.
Thank you, Kobe. The World Rally Championship is back with the Acropolis Rally of Greece. The first time the World Rally Championship is back here since 2013, and when Craig Breen won in 2014 when it was part of a European Rally Championship. So far, after 3.5 days today, the points lead right now is Sebastian Ogier, and second place in the grid ranking is Ogier. He still runs in third place right now. Yesterday he was third, and Kalle Rovanperä ended Friday as the leader. After this weekend, there's only 2 rally events remaining, Rally Finland in Spain. Japan was canceled and will not take place. Robin Paris still leads over Ott Tanak and Ogier heading into the final day.
Sorry about that. The stream route was moving a little slow there. But next, NASCAR Cup Series racing tonight at Richmond Raceway. If last Saturday night's chaotic and drama-filled playoff opener at Darlington was any indication what we'll see for the next 9 weeks, we'll definitely be in for quite a playoffs. Once again, we're racing again Saturday night under the lights at Richmond. They say Virginia is for lovers. Tonight, a playoff driver would love to punch their ticket into the round of 12. But they'll probably have to go through Joe Gibbs Racing. Last week's winner, Denny Hamlin, has 3 wins at Richmond and an average finish of 9.0. Even more dominant at this track is Hamlin's teammate, Kyle Busch, trying to bounce back from a difficult Darlington. Busch has 6 wins at Richmond and an impressive average finish of 6.8. Martin Truex Jr., looking to return to his winning ways, has 2 Richmond wins, and Christopher Bell finished 4th here in the spring race. And starting with you, Adam, do you think Joe Gibbs Racing is the team to beat tonight at Richmond?
Oh, yeah, easily. You just said Kyle Busch, had a disappointing start to the playoffs last Sunday night at Darlington. You don't think he wants to redeem himself? We saw Denny Hamlin win last week for Joe Gibbs. He's on momentum here. Martin Truex Jr. has always done good here. And Christopher Bell, like you said, Kobe, he finished in the top 10 in the spring. You want to say Virginia is for lovers? How about Joe Gibbs Racing is for lovers at Richmond International Raceway? To me, look at Hendrick Motorsports. There could be another team competing for the championship. And it could possibly be Joe Gibbs Racing after tonight's action in Richmond, Virginia.
Now, when you look at Joe Gibbs's driver lineup, all 4 of their drivers, I think, have been very strong at Richmond over the years. Denny Hamlin, in particular, being from Virginia, I'm sure he'd love to get another win at this track. Kyle Busch has to be fired up. After what happened at Darlington and all the controversy there, and what was objectively a terrible start to his playoffs, you've got to think he's looking to bounce back in a strong way at a track he's done very well at before. And Martin Truex Jr., all the talk for years about how Truex couldn't win at a short track, didn't have a win at a short track. He's done very well on short tracks since his move to Toyota with Furniture Row and Joe Gibbs. And Christopher Bell as well. He's had some strong runs. Not just in the Xfinity Series, but in the spring race as well for Gibbs. So I think when you look at their drivers, look at their lineup and the success that they've had, you certainly have to factor them in as well, along with the Hendrick drivers, who have been very strong at all the tracks we've gone to this year. But if anybody can stop them, I think you've got to look Joe Gibbs Racing being next up.
Yes, I certainly think, in my opinion, Joe Gibbs Racing has to be the team to beat. And but sorry about that, guys. Had a weird echo in my headphones there for a second. It was kind of distracting, but as I was saying, I think Joe Gibbs Racing is certainly the team to beat, especially the dominant performance they had here in the spring between Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. The duo led a combined 304 out of 400 laps, or 76% of the race. A late race restart saw Denny Hamlin lose the lead late, and the race with Alex Bowman coming on strong at the end with excellent short run speed to take the win away from Joe Gibbs Racing. With a lot more on the line now, leading the race late but finishing second could potentially be detrimental to advancing to the next round of the playoffs, especially if you run into trouble next Saturday night in the cutoff race at Bristol Motor Speedway for the Bristol night race. And for the multiple playoff drivers who ran into trouble at Darlington, how important will it be for them to have a strong, consistent performance tonight, scoring points in each stage and fighting for the win?
Well, it's very important, obviously, not just to get a good finish, but also try to pick up some stage points as well. If you're somebody like Michael McDowell, who we've said is really kind of the underdog of the playoffs this year, particularly after his last place finish at Darlington. If you're in his situation, like I said last week, you're just happy to be in the playoffs after your Daytona 500 win. And I think at this point, in particular, after what happened at Darlington, if he's going to move on, he has to go out and just try to find a way to win the race. I don't know that his Front Row Motorsports car is going to have the pace to do it on speed. They're going to have to try to work some crazy strategy or something and just go for broke, try to steal a win. But if you're Kyle Busch in particular, you had one bad race. That's something that you can recover from with, knowing where your equipment is and the position you've been in all year. But I think, it's certainly important, like I said, not just to get a good finish so that you don't have to rely on trying to go win the last race of the round, but also trying to pick up some stage points as well. I think it's very important for everybody in the playoffs, to make them feel more secure about their chances of moving on. But in particular, like you said, Kobe, the drivers that had a problem or a poor showing out at Darlington last weekend, it's particularly important for them.
Oh, yeah. Last weekend, we saw a lot of craziness with the playoff drivers at Darlington. A lot of them are going to try to rebound after what happened at the track called Too Tough to Tame. We saw all 400 Motorsports drivers crash, even though Kyle Larson, like I said, video gamed it, trying to beat Denny Hamlin. But all of them are going to be trying to do a lot better tonight on the short track at Richmond Raceway. I don't believe Michael McDowell will advance. Overall, it is really cool to see a team like Front Row Motorsports in the playoffs. They are a small team. Eric Almirola, he wrecked on Sunday night as well in Darlington. He'll be looking for a strong race tonight at Richmond. But I believe you'll have to beat Joe Gibbs Racing tonight. It's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out. And overall, it should be a really good race under the lights at Richmond International Raceway in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah, it should certainly be an interesting race. They always call Richmond the action track, and I'm sure we'll see quite a bit of action tonight under the lights. And I'm not sure if we're going to see as much action as we saw last Saturday night at Darlington at the track Too Tough to Tame. But after multiple playoff drivers ran into issues at Darlington, if the same ones run into some trouble at Richmond, oh boy, the Bristol night race is going to be must-see TV. And speaking of drivers who could potentially be in trouble if tonight doesn't go well, Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch, William Byron, and Michael McDowell are currently outside the top 12 to advance after one playoff race. Bowman, Busch, and Byron within 9 points of advancing, so that's certainly doable for those drivers. Michael McDowell has a lot more work to do, 20 points back, a tougher fight for the 2021 Daytona 500 champion if he wants to advance. Which driver currently on the outside looking in has the most to gain or lose heading into Richmond?
For me, the most to gain, Kyle Busch. After what happened Sunday night at Darlington, he'll be looking to bounce back. And don't forget that Hendrick Motorsports teammates William Byron and Alex Bowman. They'll be looking to gain a lot of momentum here at Richmond. Michael McDowell, it's going to take a Herculean effort for him to get back into the championship. But for me, the drivers to gain are William Byron, Kyle Busch, and Alex Bowman.
And I wanted to correct something that I said in the previous segment. I believe I said Darlington happened on Saturday night, but it actually happened Sunday night because of Labor Day. Totally forgot about that. But to answer the question, I think the driver who has the most to gain is Michael McDowell, and because he's 20 points back. and the Front Row Motorsports equipment is currently not the up to par with the other competitors. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him. Most to lose. I think those other three that they don't need anything bad to happen these next two races, and if something does, they could be in a lot of trouble going into Bristol next week. And I believe I skip you, Ben, for this question, so I'll go back to you.
Yeah, no worries, Kobe. I think I'm with you. McDowell actually has the most to gain, if anybody, because like we've been saying, Front Row Motorsports equipment, we don't expect them to get past the first round. So I think there's not as much pressure. Like I said, you have to try to find some sort of crazy strategy or work something out to find yourself in position to go steal a win. And that's basically where all of their focus has to be. It's very unlikely with being 20 points out already after Darlington that points are going to play in their favor. So I think when you look at it that way, McDowell actually does have the most to gain. When you look at who has the most to lose, I think it's the three drivers that are currently with McDowell that are on their outside looking in. We've been talking all year about how Hendrick Motorsports are back. They've been the dominant team. They've won the most races. All four of their drivers look like they could be legitimate threats for the championship. And yet you've got two of them on the outside looking in right now in Alex Bowman and William Byron. And then I look at Kyle Busch and somebody who is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the all-time legends and great drivers in the history of our sport, a two-time Cup Series champion already. If he has a first-round exit on his resume, it's not going to look very good. And we know Kyle's, struggled a lot since the pandemic started. I think you can boil some of that down to not having practice and qualifying, although, what we've seen this year, he jumped in the Xfinity car 5 times and won those 5 races, in a car that drives completely differently. So, we know Kyle has a lot of talent and obviously is one of the all-time greats, but it has been a struggle for him these last couple of seasons. And, he's looked a little bit better this year. Obviously, Joe Gibbs Racing has great equipment. But, I think the pressure certainly has to be on him, especially given what happened last weekend, to at the very least get out of this round. And knowing Kyle Busch, he's probably not going to be satisfied with anything less than his 3rd championship.
Yes, Kyle Busch certainly carries very high expectations, and Kyle wants to go out there and win every single week. And when he feels like he has a car capable of winning, and it's not going well for him, we'll see things like we saw last Sunday night at Darlington Raceway when he angrily drove to the garage, knocked over some cones that could have potentially hit some people. And it's going to be interesting to see if Kyle Busch will be able to bounce back from a disastrous Darlington. And you can watch the Cup race at Richmond Raceway tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on NBCSN. Also on NBCSN, there's a NASCAR Xfinity Series race coming up shortly in over an hour at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And for all you Dale Earnhardt Jr. fans out there, this is going to be an exciting race for you because Dale Jr. is running his annual 1 race per year at Richmond, and Junior Nation, I'm sure they're going to be out in full force at the track this afternoon. Next week, we have Ben with a recap of what's happened this weekend so far in MotoGP.
Yeah, and let's not forget what happened in 2018 when Junior did his one-off at Richmond. He almost won the race. So certainly high expectations for him tonight. I think with a lot of people in Junior Nation, they're going to be paying close attention to the Xfinity race as well. In MotoGP, the Aragon Grand Prix weekend is here. And again, it looks like everyone will be after Fabio Quartararo. Many anticipated this weekend for Juan Mir, the defending champion in MotoGP, to put together a strong weekend and maybe run for the title. Mir ended up qualifying only 7th for the race. So, Josh, I want to ask you this question here. After qualifying, what are Mir's chances of being a serious contender for this year's MotoGP championship?
It's a very odd one at the moment because Quartararo's on 206 points and, of course, Joan Mir is only on 141. It's getting to the late stage of the season now. I would say after this weekend, if Mir hasn't improved on the points positions, he starts 7th on the grid, as you say. Quartararo starts 3rd. If he's not ahead of Quartararo tomorrow, whatever happens, then I think it's pretty much game over. Quartararo has been consistent all season long. I didn't expect him to lose it as well. Victory back at Silverstone as well for the British Grand Prix, kind of, for me, confirmed he was the champion. So, yeah, Mia's lost it, and I think all hail El Diablo as Fabio is going to take it. I reckon maybe not next time. I think Cota's more likely he could clinch the title because it's just before we get back into the 3 sort of races towards the end of the year. So, yeah, I'm saying that we could see a champion crowned at Cota. Nice for you lot over there as well in America.
And Pecco Bagnaia destroyed the track record to take the pole for the Aragon Grand Prix in his Ducati. Another Ducati, Jack Miller, qualified second. Championship points leader Fabio Quartararo starts third. Marc Marquez and Jorge Martin round out the top 5. So with Quartararo surrounded by aggressive drivers trying to get a win, and with him in control of this championship, how should he approach the start of the race?
It's a weird track, Aragon, as well. So many left-handers as well. It's tricky to get it right, coincidentally enough, at the best of times. Susie Perry, who is the presenter on BT Sport as well, said that Marc Marquez likes this side of the track. It doesn't hurt his shoulder all that much. Ironically, she did say that Marc Marquez loved a left-hander. Unfortunately, that sent the entire BT team into laughter. I can see why. But it's absolutely fantastic as well, because we've got to start tomorrow with the two Ducatis on the front row. They have the whole shot device, so they're going to get perfect starts. Then look who's behind as well. We've got Marc Marquez, who's on a roll this weekend, which is fantastic. And we've got Johan Martin, which I thought was going to take pole position at one point. He's been consistent, that boy. It's fantastic. But yeah, I'm thinking tomorrow, Quartararo. I would say get a good launch and just swoop in behind the Ducatis. Keep Marquez behind you and you're golden for the race. Do not let Marc ahead of you, because the way he's running, he'll get ahead of the two Ducatis. It's all a question as well of what tyres you start on. Is it going to be medium front, medium rear, or is it medium front, hard rear? Because it's so much of a left-hander here as well. You do destroy a lot of your rear tyres, especially in the corkscrew section at the bottom of the hill. So I would say medium front, hard rear. That's your strategy to go on. And of course, he's thinking title. So no stupid risks. Like Lewis Hamilton would say, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, certainly going to be exciting to be following along with all that action. And now we'll throw it back to Kobe for an update on IMSA.
Yes, and this weekend, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship is back in action at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for race 9, and coming back from the 24-hour of Le Mans break. And the big news coming from IMSA this weekend, they signed a 3-year contract extension with WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. So it's very exciting that they're going to be doing IMSA racing out there for the next couple of years at least. And this weekend we're going to have the DPI, LMP2, GTLM, and GTD class all in action this weekend. And the race is going to air on Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on NBCSN. And tomorrow we'll surely have more on Grid Live Wrap Up. And next, it's time for everyone's favorite game, Pick a Winner.
That's right, Kobe. And this weekend we have 4 races that we will be doing. So first up is the F1 Italian Grand Prix at the Autodrome di Nazionale in Monza. Josh, I'll start with you. Who takes the checkered flag tomorrow in Italy?
McLaren. Which one? I'm debating in my mind. Lando Norris. And that's not because I don't want Danny Rick to win. I'm going Lando because he's had more experience in the car. He's been consistent this year. He's had multiple podiums. Danny Rick, though, has got the honey badger inside him as well. He can go for that. But I'm going to say Lando Norris is going to win tomorrow. But remember, folks, I did say McLaren, first of all.
Well, like I said earlier in the show, I was tempted to pick Hamilton again, knowing that he should be starting on the front row. Obviously, because of the sprint race now, he won't be. So it's hard for me to bet against Max Verstappen. I've picked Hamilton the last 2 weekends, and it's been Verstappen who won. So, if you're a Hamilton fan, I'm going to pick Verstappen this weekend. Maybe that's good news for you. Lewis will find a way to win. I'm tempted to just pick Bottas again because I feel like whoever I pick isn't going to win. So I might as well take the guy who's starting in the back of the grid but has one of the best cars. So it's going to be interesting to see Valtteri fight his way through the field. If he can go back and pick up some points, I think that'll be a successful weekend after his grid penalties. That unfortunately, he arguably should be starting on the pole as well. It's unfortunate he's going to be in the back. He's got something to prove with his new deal with Alfa Romeo for next year. But I think I do have to take the easy answer here. The safe bet, I'm going to go with Max Verstappen in a Red Bull.
Yes, I'm also going to join you, Ben, and go with the safe pick, Max Verstappen and Red Bull. Although I would really like to see a McLaren victory or even a Aston Martin or Alpine, a surprise winner. But since I'm losing some ground and pick a winner, since I'm gonna just stick with Max Verstappen and the safe bet here.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. I'm going with, I said it earlier in the show, I'm going with the McLaren, and I'm going with the Australian Daniel Ricciardo. Yep. I'm picking him over Max and over Lewis to win the Italian Grand Prix tomorrow at Monza. And now we shift gears to NASCAR at Richmond International Raceway. Josh, I'll start with you. Who takes the checkered flag at the historic track in Richmond, Virginia?
Denny Hamlin's still in it. I've got a good feeling about Denny Hamlin. Is he still in after the first round of playoffs? I think he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Good. I'll stay with him. Denny Hamlin will win this weekend for the Cup Series. And I think it's going to be a great one. But also for the Xfinity, go on, Junior. Go on. Love seeing Dale Jr.
Yeah, that would certainly be an incredible sight to see if Junior could win on his annual one-off return. Richmond has always been historically one of his better tracks. I think I've got to stick in the Gibbs team here. I'm going to go with Martin Truex Jr. I just have a good feeling about him. He's performed very, very well there in recent years. But it would be interesting to see Hamlin pick up 2 in a row after not winning a race in the regular season. It really is a shame. We could be having a great one-on-one battle between him and Larson for the championship, but we're here with the playoffs, and I think Truex is going to punch his ticket to the second round here.
So far, it seems like everybody's going with Joe Gibbs Racing Driver, and I'm going to keep it going. I'm going to join Josh and say Denny Hamlin's going to keep the good times rolling and all the momentum from winning the playoff season opener at Darlington. I think the driver to number 11 dominated the spring race. Alex Bowman stole the show at the end. I think this time around, Denny Hamlin's going to get redemption, and he's going to take the checker flag tonight under the lights at Richmond Raceway.
And it's Denny Hamlin's home track in his home state. And I'm going to stick with the Gibbs organization, and I'm going to say, all hail King Rowdy Busch. Yeah, I'm going Kyle Busch in the number 18 M&M's Toyota after what happened on Sunday night at the track they call Too Tough to Tame. He redeems himself and takes the checkered flag tonight. And next up, we have MotoGP at the Aragon Grand Prix. So, Josh, I'll start with you again. Who wins on Sunday?
Jack Miller. I think he's looked a bit too happy this weekend and a bit too playish. And I think he's been holding back some pace. Bagnaia took pole, but Miller took second as well. And you know how good he is. He's got a straight line in front of him down towards turn 1, middle of the track. And it's a left for turn 1. So yeah, I'm going Jack Miller will win tomorrow. And if he does, I'll be very, very happy for him because he's one of the nicest guys in the MotoGP paddock.
We joke all the time about Joe always picking Kyle Larson on the NASCAR side. I'm going to keep picking Fabio Quartararo. It's worked out for me a couple times. And how strong he looks in the championship this year. Might as well pick him again. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going to go with Quartararo.
And I'm just going to keep it simple and short here. I'm going to go with Marc Marquez, going to return to the top step of the podium, and he's going to win Aragon Grand Prix.
I'm going Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Again, I'm with Josh. I'm saying Jack Miller wins tomorrow at the Aragon Grand Prix. And now we wrap it all up with the IMSA race at WeatherTech Raceway in beautiful Laguna Seca in the Golden State of California. So Josh, I'll start with you one last time. Who takes the checkered flag at WeatherTech Raceway in Laguna Seca?
I'm not picking an Australian. I don't care how much you pay me, Adam. I'm not picking an Australian. Don't know what deal you've got with the Australian government as well, but still. Because it's impossible. I'll get Beth on me as well from my YouTube channel saying, "Oh, you're in Australia." I'm going to go actually. Currently, they're out there practicing now at the moment. And the number 10 DPI car, Philip Albuquerque and Ricky Taylor at the wheel as well. They're looking incredibly strong this weekend. They're about 0.6 of a second fast in that first section around Laguna Seca. That is seriously impressive stuff as well. So I'm definitely going for that car.
Yeah, Josh, I'm going to stick with you. I'm going to go with Wayne Taylor Racing, the number 10 car. Albuquerque and Ricky Taylor look very strong. They have all year, and I think they're going to be in prime position to take a win today.
And we'll see if we can make it unanimous here with Adam's pick. I'm also saying the number 10, Wayne Taylor Racing, accurate DPI, Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque. I think they're going to get it done at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca.
It's unanimous.
Oh, wow.
I'm going Felipe Albuquerque. I'm going with Felipe Albuquerque and Ricky Taylor in number 10, Wayne Taylor Racing DPI. Time to wrap it up. I'll throw it back to you, Ben.
Right. Be sure to like and subscribe to Grid Network here on YouTube. Don't miss any of our content from the IndyCar Grand Prix of Portland. If you're unfamiliar with the city of Portland, we highly encourage you to check out our Race Vibes at Portland vlog to give you a better visual of the Rose City. Follow us on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Also check out some of our sponsors. Pablis has dog leashes, clothing, and accessories for dogs of all sizes. And 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping homeless, sick, and rescue dogs. Also be sure to check out public.com, the stock market social media home. Our referral code gives you $5 to kick off your investment adventure. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and learn how to invest in the stock market. A big thank you, as always, to Colin, Mark, and Deshelle for supporting us on Patreon. We want to give a shout out as well to our fourth and newest Patreon supporter, Robin H. If you want to invest in Grid Network, take a few minutes after the show and visit our Patreon page. Welcome aboard, Robin, and thank you so much for joining our growing Grid family. We'll be back on the air tomorrow at noon Eastern for a special edition of Grid Live Pre-Race, previewing the IndyCar Grand Prix of Portland. Then at 3 p.m. Eastern, Grid Network is teaming up with Josh's YouTube channel for a live watch-along of all the action at Portland. And then after that, as usual, we're back on the air 90 minutes after the final race of the weekend. Grid Live wrap-up after the Grand Prix of Portland with Joe's final thoughts from the track. For Adam, Josh, Kobe, Joe on site at Portland International Raceway, I'm Ben. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy this weekend in racing.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.